Okay, so let's talk frame rates. Simply put, frame rates are the amount of images that your camera takes per second and plays back seamlessly to create a motion image. There's a combination of frame rates that you can shoot at for different reasons. For example, you'd want to shoot in a higher frame rate if you're planning on slowing the footage down later. Personally, I shoot a lot in 25 frames per second, which is the standard in a lot of film and TV work, as the motion blur is a lot more natural and a lot closer to what the human eye can see. Whereas shooting in 30 frames per second will give you a TV broadcast look to your film, for example, like a news channel. Higher frame rates such as 50 and 100 are only really used if you plan on slowing the clips down later in post. This is because if you take 50 images per second and slow it down by 50%, you're essentially getting double the frames in a 1-second clip. So played out, this clip would be 2 seconds. This also means that the slow motion is a lot smoother than if you were to slow down 25 frames per second footage. So let's have a look at an example. This clip here was shot in 25 frames per second, and as you can see, the motion blur looks very natural. Now if I take the same clip and slow it down by 50%, I'm essentially shooting in 12 frames per second, and you can see it looks terrible. If I take the same clip again but shoot it in 50 frames per second, then the motion blur doesn't look as great, as the PC thinks that there are 25 frames in the clip, so essentially it removes a few of these frames and you'll notice it looks a bit more jumpy. But if I slow it down to 50%, then I'm stretching the clip to give us 25 frames per second, meaning that to go through start to end in the exact same clip it would take 2 seconds rather than 1. This also means that the image moves a lot slower and the additional frames create the illusion of slow motion. Here's an example of the same clips played side by side in different frame rates. Notice how the 100 frames per second clip is a lot smoother and less choppy than the 25 or 50 frames per second clip. In short, I would recommend shooting all of your film at 25 frames per second unless you are planning on slowing this footage down and creating slow motion. Just don't forget that the higher the frame rate, the smoother your slow motion will be. Hopefully this gives you a bit more insight into frame rates and how to choose which frame rate to shoot in based on what each one will look like when you are editing. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch.